This week on Frank's World TV, I talked to Evan Burfield, a co-founder of 1776. Last week, I showcased the startup incubator 1776 that's located in downtown DC. This week, I had the chance to talk to Evan Burfield, one of 1776's co-founders. Let's have a look. I'm here with Evan Burfield, co-founder of 1776, a startup incubator right here in downtown DC. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem, no problem. So a lot of my audience don't necessarily know what a startup incubator is. So what is a startup incubator?
So the simplest way to describe it is, you have the cost of building a company has, particularly a technology company, has become radically less over the last 5 or 10 years than it was before. So with the cloud and better frameworks for developing code and social networks and distribution and all this kind of stuff, right? You have 1, 2, 3 people who can actually build a company that could potentially get, hundreds of thousands of people or big corporations or whatever using it. The challenge, though, is that as this is meant, it's made it easier for kind of anyone to build a company. It also means that the need for a place where you can kind of get all the other stuff, the mentorship, the access to potential partners, the access to experts who can help you develop, guidance in literally how do you develop a company, right? All of that stuff is what we provide to startups. So they come in here with their big idea, they generally have the core skills that they need, and then they get set up with mentors. They go, gosh, it would be really helpful if I could go talk to Microsoft, or it would be really helpful if I could go talk to Comcast or other partners we have. We go, great, we can set those meetings up for you. So we sort of provide that ecosystem to make it as easy as possible for them to build their startups.
So you plugged it into a much larger world that necessarily a lone entrepreneur in their garage wouldn't necessarily be able to.
Totally. And
so how long has 1776 been around?
Gosh, we opened the doors April 8th of this year. So we've been around just a little bit under 6 months.
Wow.
So yeah, just to give you the quick numbers, in 6 months we've gone, or less than 6 months, we've gone from 0 to about 100, and as of this week, 147 startups are in the program. We continue to get, an average of probably 10 applications a week. Some of them their entire team is full-time, dedicated here in 1776, and that ranges from Flat World Knowledge, which has maybe 18 people here, down to, startups that have 1 person here. And then we have other members who might be primarily based in a different city. So WeGoWise has most of their team in Boston, but they have some of their key executives, here at 1776 in Washington, D.C. By industry, the significant majority of our members tend to be focused on innovation in kind of regulated sectors. So we have 36, I think, education startups. We have another 15 or 18 healthcare startups. We have probably 10 transportation-related startups. We have composting and sustainability startups. We have energy startups. We have government services startups.
So that makes sense because DC's major businesses is government and regulatory things. Which brings me to my next question. Why DC? Because when people think startups, they think the Valley. Sometimes they think Silicon Alley. Sometimes, but typically DC is not mentioned in a lot of the top 10 kind of mental lists, but actually this area actually ranks pretty high in terms of number of startups.
Yeah, so there's probably 3 different aspects of that to talk about in terms of why DC. The first is the sort of stereotype of startups happen in Silicon Valley is both true and has not been true for quite a while, right? So there's obviously an awful lot of activity in Silicon Valley, and it is, if you're building a consumer web startup, if you want to build the next social network or the next photo sharing app, there's tremendous advantages to being in the Valley. And as we always say, whether you're in the Valley or not, you got to develop connections in the Valley if you want to do stuff in those areas. But at the same time, as the amount of capital required to build a startup has collapsed, right? So 15 years ago, you probably needed, $5 to $10 million to even get a product to market. Now, if you probably need to do it for less than $1 million to be competitive. As that's collapsed, it's opened up the opportunity for many cities across the U.S. and in fact around the world to develop vibrant startup ecosystems. So now it's about, it's less about access to a small set of top venture capitalists, and now it's about angel capital and mentorship and anywhere in the world can access the cloud, and they can access blogs, and they can follow the right people on Twitter, and they can kind of learn about this stuff. But mentorship becomes important, and guidance and density of networks. So, that's the first aspect, which is, the valley's still the top, but there's a lot more going on beneath the surface that a lot of people have seen. The second, aspect to why DC is that there's always been a lot more activity going on in DC than people realize. So, when we got ready to launch 1776 and we were really looking at where to put it, across the greater Washington, D.C. area, there's about 1,000 startups that are actively raising capital on AngelList, which is kind of the Facebook of angel investing, right? So of those 1,000 startups, about half of them are actually in the District of Columbia, and most of those are pretty densely spread from DuPont Circle down to the Verizon Center, so right in the heart of downtown. And if you ask most people, are there 400 some odd startups actively raising capital, in downtown DC? The vast majority of people in downtown DC wouldn't even believe you.
Yeah,
because where are they? Like they're hidden. They're one-person, two-person companies. They're the random people you see sitting at a Starbucks working away on something. They're in their apartment. They're in a library. And so we've benefited at 1776, just from the fact that by existing, we created a single place that all these startups could come together, and then everybody went, oh my gosh, there's all these startups.
Yeah.
There's just a visibility component to it. The third aspect and the most interesting answer to the question of why DC for us at 1776 is that our fundamental thesis is that there's tremendous opportunities over the next 10 to 15 years for innovation in traditionally regulated industries, right? So our lives as consumers, right? The ability to share information or, do e-commerce, buy airline tickets online, right? Like all this stuff has become wildly transformed in the last decade to 15 years, right? Wildly transformed. We think our lives as citizens, how we educate our children, how we manage our health, how we access government services, how we manage energy, all of these things are sort of the next really interesting industries that are going to go through this kind of disruptive transformation over the next 10 to 15 years. And it makes sense, right? Like regulated sectors highly regulated sectors are roughly half the economy, right? So the unregulated sectors, the low-hanging fruit, relatively speaking, were the first to really go through this transformation. And now you're starting to see the kind of, the more complex stuff that you're really getting into. But these remain huge industries, right? Like online advertising, right? The consumer web is about $80–90 billion a year. It's a big market. Education in America alone is an $800 billion a year market. These are massive markets for entrepreneurs that are really thinking about how do you apply these kinds of innovative tools and new opportunities to changing the way we educate our kids. So our view was, if that's the big opportunity, and innovating in those spaces can borrow a lot from innovating in the consumer world, but is also unique in its own right. You have to understand how to deal with these industries. Then, the right place for us to be is in Washington, D.C. because you have all these networks, all this domain expertise that come together here right in this city. And if we can unlock that and open it up for startups, we think we can make a big impact and make a big change.
Intermission time. Time that stretch you've been wanting.
I don't always sign up for things, but when I do, I sign up for BizSpark. I'm sure you're wondering what BizSpark is. BizSpark is a program that Microsoft runs to help enable and empower entrepreneurs and startups build out their products. So for instance, if you wanted to create an app, the next big great app, you can get free tools and cloud services from Microsoft. That's right, free. In fact, if you sign up for BizSpark Plus, you'll actually be eligible for up to $60,000 of free cloud service time. Information on how to sign up is below, and sign up today.
If you don't watch Frank's World TV, you're dead to me.
Perfect.
And now, on with the show.
What exactly is an angel investor?
Okay.
And then what happens with venture capital? Because I know there's different rounds that come up. So what would be the typical life cycle?
Here's what people who aren't, really actively involved in building startups here's how they tend to think, right? This is from watching movies like The Social Network.
Yeah.
So the way they think it works is I come up with a big vision, and I have this compelling vision, and I write it all out in a business plan, and then I wander around until I find a venture capitalist who will write me a check for $1 million or $5 million or whatever it is, and then I go hire a lot of people and I start building my company. And that's actually roughly the way it worked 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
In the 90s.
Yeah, I launched my first startup in 1996, and I did exactly that, right? I wrote a business plan, I went to an angel investor, and they gave me a check for $1 million. I was 19 years old, and it was awesome. Totally not the way it happens nowadays. The way it happens nowadays is you need to go find someone who believes in your vision and really knows how to hack well. And by hacking, I don't mean break into networks, I mean coding, building things, right? You need to find somebody who can really make a compelling design, right? Who can make it look simple and elegant and compelling. You need to start, fleshing out what are all of the assumptions and ideas that are necessary. You don't need a business plan, you don't need a document, but you need to think through what are all of the things that need to be true in an interconnected way such that my business actually makes sense and can scale up. As you start getting evidence around that, maybe you get 50 or 100 or 200 or 500 people using it, or maybe you get 1 or 2 companies that are willing to pilot it for you. Then you're going to go to an angel investor. And an angel investor is somebody who wants to write a check to invest in your company because they want a financial return, but they also want to be involved in helping you to build it. So the idea of an angel is that they bring expertise to the table. Maybe they've built a company before. Maybe they really know the industry that you're working in well. Maybe they're just a really connected person who can help you to build your network.
So they're not just a bank, they're a mentor, basically.
They're a rich person with expertise and connections. And they're usually writing a personal check, right? And so I do angel investing, and it's me going, I believe in your company and what you're doing, and I'm going to write a check out of my bank account. Yeah. And if you lose that money, if your company doesn't succeed, you just lost my money. But I'm going to do everything I can to help you.
So you have, the angel has skin in the game.
Oh yeah.
So they're gonna be. It's not just like you walk down to the bank and say, "Here's a loan."
No, it's okay. It's my money, and I write checks into startups personally, and each one I got to, my wife's like, "Are you sure you want to invest in this one?" And if I lose the money, she gives me, it's a real investment. So that's customer discovery. Then you start going through customer validation, which is until people actually start actively using your product every day or every week or whatever it needs to be, or they start actually paying you money for it, right? It's still theoretical, and so you want to go through validation. You want to actually go, look, here's 10 companies that are paying me $1,000 a month to use my product. Well, that's great. You've got $10,000 in revenue now, and you can use that money to continue building your product. But more importantly, if there's another 10,000 companies out there like the ones that have started using your product, then you start going to, angels again, and you say, now I need to raise $500,000. Write me a bigger check, right? I need to bring more angels into what I'm doing. And you're going to go through that process for a fairly long time. And what happens nowadays is a lot of startups get acquired before they ever go raise traditional venture capital.
Really?
Right?
So that's an exit strategy.
So they raise $1 million, they raise $2 million, $3 million in angel money, right? It's all from individuals that are looking you in the eye and they believe in you and they're helping you build your company. And then, maybe a big company comes along and buys you. Or you've developed a successful enough business that it's lucrative and profitable and it's growing really nicely, and you don't need venture capital. Because if you do need venture capital is a very different process, right? Because it's a much more structured, professional, institutional process. So you go to the venture capital firms and they have a set of partners and they've got to make a decision. And nowadays, very few venture capital firms will write you a check for less than $3 to $5 million because there's a bunch of dynamics, but their funds have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. So if they have a $500 million fund and they've got 6 partners, and each partner needs to look after each startup they invest in, if you do the math, the venture capital firm needs to go, okay, I have the opportunity to eventually invest $10, $15, $20 million into this company, and my first check-in will be $3 to $5 million, but I can keep writing checks and keep putting more money to play. So it's a very, very small segment of entrepreneurs who are ever going to build what we would call sort of a high growth startup. And it's an even smaller subset of those who are ever going to go raise institutional venture capital. So, what we do is bring together mentors, angel investors, some institutional venture capitalists, corporate partners, some of whom are interested in acquiring companies. We bring all that stuff together to sort of create the primordial soup, right, of nutrients and things that you need, so you can take your vision and your idea and your co-founders and you can put yourselves into it, and you have a fighting chance to actually be one of the success stories.
So tell me about what made you call it 1776.
Well, come on, 1776 was the year that the Declaration of Independence was signed. And right in the Declaration, I'm paraphrasing, but it basically says when institutions no longer serve the needs of the people, it is the duty, not the opportunity, but the duty of people to rise up and create new institutions. And we would argue right now, if you look at the way we educate our children, or the way we manage our healthcare, or the opportunity for better, more efficient, more sustainable cities, or better energy usage, or improving the way that government and citizens interact to make government more responsive to citizens. Like, we have broken institutions. And
no one will argue with that.
Yeah, and we have we believe deeply that the solution lies primarily in getting our most creative, problem-solving entrepreneurs to start tackling those problems. So
where can folks go to find out more about 1776, or possibly even join up? So we're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. So it's at 1776DC on Twitter. On Facebook, you just go to facebook.com/1776DC. Our website is 1776dc.com. We have a membership application on the website. The key being, you have to actually have a concept for a highly scalable business. So as we always say, if you're a freelancer, or maybe you're building a professional services firm, or you've got a great idea for a product that that there's 5 companies that'll use and that's it, we celebrate that. We think it's wonderful. We love all kinds of entrepreneurship, but it's not what we're set up to provide value to, right? We're designed to help companies who have a product that, if it really works, is going to dominate the world in a particular segment or niche. So if you have that kind of idea, that kind of product, then you should absolutely apply. And our focus is not exclusively, but it's primarily on those kinds of ideas in areas like education or healthcare, energy efficiency, or transportation, or government services. Kind of, these markets that are big and broken, but more importantly, if we can fix them, have the potential for tremendous impact for improving the world. Well, thank you very much. Hey. It's been an awesome interview. Yeah, thank you. For everyone else, be sure to check out 1776dc.com. And I'm here with Evan. And thanks a lot. Thanks, Rick. Bye. That's all for this week. See you next week as we continue Startup September. I love that special effect.
All right. If you don't watch Frank's World,